All right, so this is a video covering your Unit 1 of Algebra 1 study guide. So we're just going to go over the problems. So if you guys have any questions, I don't have to repeat myself to each one of you. You can just watch the video. Excuse my voice, it's a little bit weak this week, but we will try to cover everything. So we're going to start. This is problem number 1. Number 1 says 7 times negative 6. So you need to remember, anytime you multiply a negative times a positive, you're going to end up with a negative. You just multiply the two numbers, whatever 7 times 6 is, it's going to be negative. Okay, different signed numbers, positive, negative equals negative. Okay, 2 negatives equal a positive, also 2 positives equal a positive. But if you multiply a positive times a negative, you're going to get a negative. Problem number 2, you're adding different sign numbers. So it's negative 16 plus 24. So you can actually do this backwards and just say 24 minus 16 and it'll work. It also will work to put it on your number line. Start over here at negative 16. Write it all in, negative 15 all the way down. Here's 0. So you count 24 up this way to the right, because when you add, you move right on your number line. Number 3, they ask, what is the multiplicative inverse of 1 over 6? So the multiplicative inverse of 1 over 6, you just invert it for the multiplicative inverse. So instead of 1 over 6, it's going to equal to 6 over 1 or just 6. So that's the opposite. The multiplicative inverse is the opposite of a fraction. Number 4. You read this by saying 9 minus negative 16. So 2 negatives together make a positive. So this would be 9 plus 16. Just add those two numbers and you'll have your answer. Okay, number 5. They say evaluate a squared for a equals negative 5. So you're just going to put negative 5 in there. You put it in parentheses, negative 5 squared. Now, this doesn't mean negative 5 times 2. When this exponent means you multiply this number by itself that many times. So you go negative 5 times negative 5. Now, 2 negatives make a positive, so it's just 5 times 5. Okay, number 6, they want you to evaluate negative 6 plus negative 2 plus 9. So right here, negative 6, you can just take these parentheses off, no problem. Plus negative means minus. When you have a plus and a negative together, you get a negative, so it's minus 2 plus 9. So negative 6 minus 2, you actually go backwards on your number line. If you're here at negative 6, and you minus 1, 2, you're going to end up at negative 8, and then add 9. So go right 9 spaces on your number line. So number 7, they say to simplify 5a times b times 3ac. So you're multiplying. So when you multiply variables, coefficients with variables, you multiply the numbers. So this is 5 times 1 times 3. So 5 times 3 is 15. Okay, and then for your variables, when you multiply variables, their exponents add. Now what you don't see is each of these has an exponent of 1. Now you don't ever see an exponent of 1, but it's always there. So in this case, you're going to count. You have 1a and 1a here. So that gives you a squared, and then you have 1b and 1c. So you add any exponents you have. On number 8, they ask, simplify and determine the coefficient of negative 4 over 6x times 6y times negative 4x. Now the coefficient is this number, the one that is multiplied to any variable. It's called the coefficient. They want you to simplify. That means they want you to multiply these 3 numbers together and tell them what it'll be at the end. So this is easier than most people think. You just multiply the top number, which is negative 4, times 6 times this negative 4, and then divide it all by this 6 right here. Number 9, they want you to tell them how many terms are in the expression shown below. So they give you this expression. It's an expression, not an equation, because there's no equal sign. So what you need to check for is if there are any like terms. So this one is x squared, xy, y squared, and this is a constant. So no, there's nothing like, there's nothing we could add or put together. So that gives you 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. So check to make sure none of them are like before you decide. Number 10, these, they give you, the first time you're going to see these absolute value signs. So these absolute value signs say everything, anything in there is positive, but you do your equation inside first. You don't change this to negative and that to positive. You don't change this to positive and that to negative. You add them and then take your absolute value. So this would be negative 9 plus 2. It's actually a negative 7. Okay, so it's the absolute value of negative 7, which is 7, but because of this out here, it stays negative. Okay, so this sign outside the absolute value makes it negative again. Number 11 over here is the order of operations. Okay, so it says 4 minus negative 1 minus 3 times negative 7. There's no sign between the number and the parentheses, so that means it's multiplication. So remember, in our order of operations, we use PEMDAS. So first you check for any parentheses. That would be a parenthesis with an equation inside, not an equation, expression such as 3 plus 4, something like that. There's nothing like that. These parentheses are setting off multiplication, so they're not considered a parenthesis for in this equation. This is multiplication, not parentheses. Exponents, there's no exponents here. So the next you do multiplication and division together. So you start at this side and you do any multiplication and division you come to. So the first thing you're going to come to is this negative 7 right here, negative 7 times negative 3. So 7 times 3 is 21, and because they're both negative, it makes a positive. So you're going to end up with 4 minus negative 1 plus 21. Okay, so now then you do any addition and subtraction from left to right, same thing. So you're going to go 4 minus negative 1. So minus negative actually means positive. So this is 4 plus 1 gives you 5 plus 21, and you finish it off by going 5 plus 21 equals 26. Okay, number 12 is a true and false question that says integers are never irrational numbers. So remember, an integer is a whole number, positive and negative. It's not fractions, they're whole numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way that way, and negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, all the way that way. So an irrational number is a fraction or a decimal that's repeating without end. So integers are whole numbers, they will never be irrational, they're always whole. Number 13, they say, select all the following expressions that are equivalent to 0.9. So you're going to evaluate all of these. So this one is 0.3 squared. So you can do that on your calculator. 0.3 times 0.3. I believe it's going to give you 0.09. So that is not equal to that. Next, they say, what about negative 0.2 plus negative 0.03? So you can add those on your calculator. I believe 0.2 and 0.03 are probably going to give you 0.5. It is not true. All right, what about negative 0.9? So two negatives make a positive. So yes, this is going to be equal to it. And then next, at the bottom, they say 2x minus 1.75x. Since they don't tell us what x is, we cannot even evaluate this. We can't simplify it, so no, it is not equal to that. All right, problem number 14. You're going to evaluate and say which smallest to largest. So you have 1/2 squared. That means you're going to square the top number and the bottom number, the numerator and the denominator. So that's 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4. All right, and then to evaluate, you need them all in the same form. Right now you have 2 fractions and a decimal. So let's put them all in decimal form, and you change a fraction to a decimal by dividing. So you're going to go 1 divided by 4 is 0.25. 2 divided by 3, you can do that on your calculator. It's going to be 0.67, and then 0.45. Now they're all rounded to the hundredth. They're all set. We can look. The smallest is going to be 0.25, 0.25, 0.45, and then 0.67. So the smallest is actually this one. The second smallest is this one. My dry erase marker is going to go out. And my third smallest is this one here. All right, number 15, they want you to combine like terms. Combining like terms, you cannot combine 13m and minus 5n. You can't because this is an m and n, they're not alike. But you can combine the ones that are alike. You can combine 13m plus m. So this is actually 1m. You'll never see a 1 in front of a variable, but that's what it is. If it's just a variable there by itself, 13m plus 1 more m gives you 14m, and then negative 5n minus 4n. Excuse my minus sign there. Ugly. There we go. Negative 5. So remember the sign in front of it tells you what it is, all right? Negative 5 minus 4. So negative 5 minus 4 is negative 9n. Okay, problem number 16, they want you to find the value of 20 minus 16 divided by 4 times 5. So again, this is an expression with the order of operations. Which one do I do first? The subtraction, the multiplication, or the division, right? So again, we're going to do PEMDAS. So P stands for parentheses. There are no parentheses in this equation. Exponents is next, no exponents. And then in PEMDAS, next is M and D. They go together, make multiplication and division. So you start at one side and you do any multiplication and division you come to in that order. So first off here, you're going to get to a division first. So you're going to go 16 divided by 4 is 4. So it's 20 minus 4 times 5. So then check again. Now you're going to do the multiplication. 20 minus 4. 4 times 5 is 20. So 20 ends up 20 minus 20, which gives you 0. Number 17, you're evaluating, simplify is what they say. Simplify. So on these, you actually start from the smallest set of parentheses. All right, so that's this one inside, and you're going to evaluate. See this negative right here? When you have a negative outside of parentheses, what it does is it multiplies. It's like multiplying this whole thing by negative 1. It changes the signs inside here. So you check, can you combine these two? No, you can't, because this is just 3 and this is x. So what you do is you say x, all right? This negative is going to change this positive 3 to a minus 3, and this positive x to a minus x. Then we still have this 4 minus. Again, combine what you can. In here you have an x minus x. So those eliminate completely. X minus x is nothing, and then this negative is going to change that to a positive 3. So it ends up 4 plus 3 equals 7 is the final answer on that one. All right, now problem number 18. They want you to evaluate x squared over y plus x squared over z. If x is 20, y is negative 10, and z is negative 4. So you're just going to insert these numbers in here. X is 20, so you're going to have 20 squared over negative 10 plus 20 squared over negative 4. So you're going to evaluate 20 squared. Doesn't mean 20 times 2, it means 20 times 20, which is going to give you 400. So you're going to have 400 divided by negative 10 plus 20 times 20 again is 400 divided by negative 4. So do those. 400 divided by negative 10, 400 divided by -4, and then add the results together for your answer. Number 19, you're going to do the same thing. You're inserting what they give you in. Evaluate 8 plus -6x squared when x equals 0. So you're going to put 0 in here. 8 plus -6 times 0 squared. Well, 0 squared is 0, and -6 times 0 is 0. So 8 plus 0 equals 8. All right, problem number 20. So the same thing as the last problem, you're going to insert. They say evaluate 6x cubed, that's when you have an exponent of 3, plus 1. 4x equals -1. So you're going to go 6 times -1 squared plus, not squared, my bad, cubed to the power of 3. So remember again, this isn't -1 times 3. That means you have to go -1 times -1 times -1. Now, when you multiply a negative by itself to an even power, you're always going to get an even number. But to an odd power, you're going to get an odd number. So 1 times 1 times 1 is 1, but because it's negative, you're going to end up with -1 plus 1. Okay, so you go 6 times -1 is -6, and plus 1 will give you your answer. All right, number 21 is they bring up the distributive property. So when you have a number multiplied to an expression inside parentheses, you have to distribute. So you're going to multiply this number on the outside by the first term and by the second term. All right, so you have 4 times x gives you 4x, just put them close together. That shows multiplication. And then 4 times 5 is 20. Pay close attention to if this is positive or negative. In this case, it was positive, so it was +4 times +5 is a +20. But if there's a negative number in there, you are going to get a negative in your answer. All right, problem number 22. They want you to tell them what 10q minus 20 is equivalent to. And they give you these 3 expressions here, so you need to solve them. Again, it's the distributive property, so you would multiply 5 times q would give you 5q. 5 times -20 would give you 100, -100. Is that equal to that? No, it's not. Do the next one. It's also going to give you 5q times -4. 5 times -4 is -20. So I think it probably is the last one. 10 times q is 10q, and 10 times -2 is -20. So this is your equivalent here. Number 23, they want you to tell them what is the expression for the sum of a number and 7 times that same number. So your Q's here are sum, so it's going to be addition, and it's a number, so they don't tell you what number. So they are calling it in these, your choices here, in. So the sum of a number plus, so the sum means plus, and 7 times that same number. So you have a number plus 7 times the same number. This is your best choice. This one would read 7 times the difference of 2 and a number. And this one would read the difference of 7 times a number and that same number. All right, problem number 24. You're going to combine like terms again. So remember, you can't combine a coefficient and a variable such as 6x with just a constant 7. 6x and 7 are not alike. You have to combine the 6x and the 9x. Remember, what sign is in front of you tells you what you're going to do. So you got 6x minus 9x. So 6 minus 9 is going to give you a -3x, and then you're going to go 7 plus 7. So 7 plus 3. And that'll give you your second number that's a positive. 7 plus 3 is 10. All right, and the last problem, you're going to combine 2 things we've done, the distributive property and combining like terms. So remember, distributive property says you got to multiply this number by this first term and the second term that's in your parenthesis. So you got to go 3 times x, which gives you 3x, and the 3 times negative 4. So remember, it's a positive and a negative is going to give you a negative 12. All right, same thing here. 8 times x is 8x. They're both positive, so it's a positive 8x. And then 8 times 2, it's a positive times a positive, which gives you positive 16. And then just like the last problem, combine your like terms. You're going to have a 3x plus 8 more x and a negative 12 plus 16. And that will give you your answer. Do your best on this. Remember that this is not the test. It's just a study guide that gives you some problems like what you're going to face on the test. So know what you're doing. Don't just guess and don't memorize your answers because it's not the same as the test.